I saw it. With the 15th overall pick, the Washington Redskins have selected DWAYNE HASKINS. This is a great pick for Washington, as they do not have a quarterback of the future, right? They invested in Alex Smith. He had a brutal knee injury, has had tons of complications on that injury, and he is going to maybe not never play again, right? And if so, how limited is he going to be? He is not going to be worth, unfortunately, just being frank, he is no longer should be a part of their long-term plans. There's no certainty there if he can ever even return to the field, yet return to what he once was. So right now they're heading into 2019 with Colt McCoy, who continues to be banged up as well, and Case Keenum at quarterback, right? Wrong. They just drafted at 15. They got a gift in DWAYNE HASKINS. Many people expected him to go in the top 10. I don't think anyone thought he would fall to 15. He does. And this is a nightmare scenario for Dave Gettleman of the New York Giants. And I'm going to talk about that second, because first I do want to break down DWAYNE HASKINS. And DWAYNE HASKINS had a very, very strong year last year. His only year as a starter at the college level, but he threw 50 passing touchdowns and 8 interceptions. That's it. 373 completions, a 70% completion percentage. That is very, very, very good. He threw for 4,831 yards, 50 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. And again, he is a cannon downfield. He's an accurate quarterback. The one knock on him was that he ran a sub 540. And I know Stephen A. Smith called him a running quarterback. That's not what he is. In fact, last year as a starter, he rushed for just 108 yards, but he did have the 4 touchdowns. And this is where I think he can be a big fantasy contributor. I don't think he has the upside of a Kyler Murray because I don't think he can give you anywhere near the value with the legs that a Kyler Murray can. But he's the complete opposite when it comes to size than Kyler Murray. He is 6'3", 220 pounds. At least that's what he was listed at, right? So I think we're going to see a lot of him on the goal line be used to punch the ball in. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see him rush for 4 touchdowns or something this year, something along those lines, 4 or 5 touchdowns. Remember, Kirk Cousins with Washington every year was a lock. 4 rushing touchdowns, 4 rushing touchdowns, 4 rushing touchdowns. And it adds a lot to his value. Kirk Cousins didn't have those rushing touchdowns this year, and we saw it negatively affect his fantasy value. I expect DWAYNE HASKINS to come in. Oh, and last year, between the 4 players who started for the Redskins quarterback, they had 2 rushing touchdowns. I think Haskins comes in, competes with Case Keenum and Colt McCoy for the job. I'm not sure if he wins it right away, but I expect by weeks 4 or 5, he is already handled. In fact, though, if I was a betting man, I would expect him to come in and start right away. And for fantasy, I'm valuing him as a QB2, more of a low-end QB2. And it's not a knock on him. Quarterback is just so deep this year. I'm saying it goes 20 deep. You're going to see guys like potentially like Carson Wentz be valued as QB2s this year. And I think he comes in, doesn't have the best weapons, but he does have Josh Doxson. I like Trey Quinn a lot in the slot. He has Paul Richardson outside. So I think those guys, they're adequate. You can get by with those guys at the NFL level. I think Haskins, though, doesn't provide enough upside with his legs to crack, being a top 15 quarterback. But I think he's going to be a low-end QB2, someone you could see either drafted as a low-end QB2 in a superflex or as a high-end QB3, a backup, depending on how he plays, this spring and summer heading into the season. But he's going to, I think, get some hype. I don't think he is nearly as good as Kyler Murray because he doesn't provide that floor with the rushing ability like a Murray does or that upside. But I do think he can be fantasy viable. One of those quarterbacks who, if you wait for your QB2, you pair him with another guy and you stream the matchup, something along those lines. And again, this is a colossal failure, I think, for the New York Giants, for Dave Gettleman. Dave Gettleman could have taken Haskins at 6, and I sounded off on why Daniel Jones was a mistake there, right? And You could have taken Haskins, I kept saying. A guy who threw 50 touchdowns and 8 interceptions compared to Daniel Jones, who, again, threw in his college career threw 48 touchdowns and 22 interceptions. So the numbers are just they tell you right there, I think, tells you what you need to know about Daniel Jones. Plus, now not only is Daniel Jones going to be compared to Sam Darnold, crosstown rival, for the rest of their careers, because it's going to be the guy that you passed up to take a running back to then take a bad quarterback a year later. It's also going to be, hey, you passed on DWAYNE Haskins, and now we got to play him twice a year, and you're going to repeatedly see this guy. And if DWAYNE Haskins outperforms Daniel Jones, you best believe you're going to be hearing about it all year. So for the next 10 years, the Giants fans are going to have to watch Haskins. They're going to have to watch Sam Darnold, and they're just going to have to compare him to Daniel Jones. And it's unfair for Daniel Jones, but it's not unfair for Dave Gettleman. It was a bad mistake. Obviously, Daniel Jones, if Haskins went off the board at 15, Daniel Jones would have been there at 17. And I even think you could have waited and got him in round 2.